Macedon by Harold Lamb. The road true. Philip said all that in 2 words. Olympias remarked, gold and glory. Olympias distrusted the generals because she could not influence them. Well, your inability to control people shouldn't be your trust or distrust, really. Come on. She warned her son against them, saying that he must profit by them and not allow them to become as powerful as kings. And the final event was to justify her suspicion. The elder kinsman came to sit with Alexander, to drink his wine and urge him to take action with the army. Had not Philip educated him and trained him to do just that? The Macedonian nation was young and must fight for its existence against the antagonistic forces surrounding it. Among those forces, you wonder if Antigona was where we get the word antagonistic from. Among those forces, the old men said the most dangerous was the professional soldiery. They had seen that danger grow. Before the World War, the professional soldier had not existed in Greece. The hoplite of that remote day had been in truth a citizen soldier, keeping his weapons in his home and going forth at need for a month or more to serve the armed force of his native country without pay, then to return to his farm or shop. The exercise of arms had been to him little more than training for the arduous Olympic Games. The first marathon race followed the course of the runner who had sped from the battlefield of Marathon to carry the news to Athens. During the exhausting civil wars that followed, however, the hoplite had been kept longer in the field, his family thus deprived of his all-important services. Well, overstating his role, but enough. Essential could be proper, though. He had been given at first a dole of food or supplies to enable it to survive, then a regular dole in money during the absence of the hoplite. By decrees, the citizen soldiery had begun to draw pay. Moreover, as campaigns lengthened and armies were expanded, more recruits were drawn into the ranks of the phalanx, until finally, even in Sparta, the helots, or slave laborers, were enlisted in the ranks and eventually paid. Isn't there a Tad song called Helot? Pretty heavy stuff. These were enlisted in the ranks and eventually paid. Oh, this change over and total mobilization also took place with the crews and rowers and fighters of the warships. This change could not be undone. At the end of the Greek internecine conflicts, the citizen volunteer, who was also a homeowner, had become no better than the physically powerful helot, or freed slave in the ranks, or the barbarian from the forest or sea who enlisted for pay. Moreover, the citizen who did not return after demobilization often found his farm destroyed or his shop burned. He usually found a foreigner or slave doing his work as harvester or shoemaker or druggist for a smaller wage than the citizen could live upon. He found prices of clothing and luxuries much higher than before. Every war since World War II has been bad for the economy of my country, for example. More often than not, unemployed soldiers dismantled subsidies from the state are hired out in other armies. Those professional forces tended to form within all cities where conflict broke out, as where the proprietor class of a city defended itself against the newly landless. The hoplite volunteer of Marathon, who owned his spear shield, sword, and bronze helmet had become as legendary as the warrior Achilles by the year 400 BCE. The wealthier class now hired military forces, paying the highest rates to the best trained troops. The newly rich citizens and merchants and landed proprietors no longer served in the phalanx. They hired professionals instead to take their places. As with the men in the ranks, so with the officers, the elected leaders of the early citizen levies had been replaced by professional officers who made a career of warfare as doctors devoted themselves to medicine. About 400 BCE, Xenophon's 10,000, with their officers, had ventured as far as Babylon, and in the service of the Asiatic king and the king of Sparta, Agesilaus, had hired with 1,000 veterans to the Egyptian pharaoh. This diaspora extended to all skilled classes of the turbulent Greek cities. Technicians streamed away from their mother cities towards the colonies and vast capitals of Asia. Teachers, prostitutes, architects, and philosophers emigrated towards the market for their skill. The artists of the Parthenon, men like Phidias. Okay, I'm stuck between proper pronunciation, if this is a proper Greek spelling, or other things, and things not being phrased how I would. I'm not being allowed to sleep well enough right now. Who had ennobled the temples of their home, gave way to statue makers, carvers of jasper and agate gems, designers of bathtubs and fountainheads, and pottery figurines of their entities. These artisans of the new post-war world were no longer devoted artists. They gave their loyalty to a profession. They followed the sea lanes and caravan routes to foreign employers, as the notorious Thais voyaged to Egypt after the Spartan soldiers. These mercenaries of the Nile served an officer instead of a city. The officer served the man who paid him. Moreover, being professionals in the business of war, these hired hoplites had skill and rigid discipline. As with the men, so with the machines. During the long Civil War period, engineers from Ture and Syracuse had perfected machines to cast javelins, burning oil, massive balls of stone, apparatus to tear down walls, and other machines to defend walls. Projectiles such as these, discharged from a distance, began to be more devastating than the shock of an advancing human battle line. These new engines of destruction could be built by money power. Philip had understood this danger from money power and the professional soldiery. The wise old men reminded Alexander to train the Macedonians. He had hired professionals like the Theban veterans. He had brought Diodes's brain to devise more efficient mobile machines. In consequence, his Macedonian Highlanders had a fine spirit, a very fine national spirit, yet they were still at heart farmers, thinking of their homes. All around them extended the danger that professional regiments, fleets, and machines at any time, the money power of the great Persian king of Asia might assemble these scattered forces and crush little Macedon. At any time now that Philip was dead, did not Alexander understand the danger? Now, there was the support of the West, certainly, but one of the things that happened in recent times that some of us are well familiar with is what happened in Egypt, is that you had a democratically elected people, and not only because of Western support of, they're threatening Western interest, they're increasing freedom of people who believe or disbelieve whatever in Egypt, but, democracy, we don't want real democracy. We've been talking about spreading democracy, but we don't want real democracy. The professional military overtook their democracy. And Then the managers of royal silver and gold mines at Mount Pangaas came up to talk with Alexander. They talked to him about money, telling him that a new force had come into a world with coined money that had not been written down in the textbooks of the academies like Misa. Coined money had become, in a peculiar way, not merely the symbol of power, but power itself. In the shadowy elder world of the true, when the Macedonian herders became emerging from the northern steppes, coins had not existed. Human beings had been accustomed to exchange one kind of thing for another, or food for service, and had very gradually begun to use such well-known valuables as sheaths of precious iron rods as a standard of value, to exchange again for something else. Then certain weights of rare metals like copper or electrum had been used as standards, stamped with the mark of the owner or maker. Only 2 centuries before, much smaller weights of gold and silver had been stamped as true coins of fixed value and used for exchange in cities like Sardis, Rhodes, or Argos. These coins bore on them the images of so-called gods, or the totem of a city, like the Athenian owl. Could that connect the Illuminati? You know. Now traders were spreading coined money through the Mediterranean world, chiefly the fine Athenian owls, yet the supply of new silver was limited to the yield of a few mines. Values began to be reckoned in terms of silver, Greek drachmas, but a natural feeling persisted among ordinary folk that it was unnatural to make a profit out of money itself. Such unnatural profit controverted fate, and it would bring retribution upon the offender. The usury and all that. But some of this is indication that the Bible even the Tanakh portion contains rewritten portions, because they put some of this stuff farther back than it could be reasonably asserted that was going on. Had not Midas, lord of a small city, come to a bad enough end through his craving to hoard gold, even Sparta, which had long maintained itself without use of money, by communal sharing, and a common kitchen, was now on a money basis, and Sparta, sustained artificially by Persian gold, had become the servant of the will of the Asiatic king, Demosthenes, the orator of democracy, had confiscated the silver coins of a shrine to outfit an Athenian army, and Chaeronea had been the result. Had not the wars deprived the common folk of food, fuel, and clothing, and loosed epidemics upon them? Now the cities like Athens built large public works to employ discharged soldiers, paying them in coin. All this had driven up the price of necessities like wheat, sheep, and cloth. A barrel of wheat now cost 5 drachmas instead of 2, and a sheep sold for 5 times as much as before the wars. Now, whether you talk about that written by Barabbas or John of Patmos doing the rewrite for the Christians, that is the scarcity being talked about there. This foreboding about coined money on the part of common folk was not shared by the intelligentsia, who realized the immense leverage to be gained from possession of even a few of the bright minted coins. All coins to be accepted at this time had to be full weight of pure silver or gold. Counterfeit, token, or flat money still lay in the distant commercialized future, along with paper currency, price fixing, manipulation of the currency. Usurers and moneylenders had not yet taken their places with their scales in the doorways of the temples. A handful of Athenian owl coins could buy for the possessor a stone house, or a half-dozen labor slaves from the Euxine, or Thrace. I don't know the Greek spelling. I want to say Thrace, but a single talent could build a trireme, a destroyer or bronze-beaked narrow warship, powered by great oars, with 3 rowers seated on 3 tiers to drive it into a section. Well, a talent is actually like 50 kilos? So it's no small amount of wealth. Such a talent or coined money could acquire the grain crop of an island, or a ship's load of girl and boy slaves who could be trained to cultivate land, weave cloth, and who would in time increase their number by bearing children. Now, I don't believe in generational slavery. Yes, sometimes in war you got to, there's going to be slaves as a result instead of just killing everybody. But the fact that the future generations have to be slaves too, no. A store of coins accumulated by a tyrant or the keepers of a shrine in a treasury or locked chest could be seized entire, to be spent by the new possessor for an infinity of valuable things. It needs an effort of the imagination to realize that in this age, before the financial machinery of the Roman Empire, the Mediterranean world was still on a primitive money basis. Banking as such did not exist, and only a few markets could coins be exchanged for things. Taxation, and only in a few, okay, there's some words missing, like only in a few markets could coins be exchanged for things. Taxation was something new under the sun. City-states had small budgets, which were met by contributions from citizens more or less forced. If an army was to be equipped, or a fleet outfitted, or a play staged in the theater, the citizens were called on to raise a fund to pay for it. While land-owning classes had existed for some time, property owners still remained rare, and money owners were only just beginning to appear. Well, certainly when it comes to war and government functions and stuff like this, it should be of the interest of the citizens directly, not, well, I mean, there is a collective, but this, just trust the government in its, but this implementation of money is where some of these ideas snuck in to the extent that we're going to see in later history. Well, maybe not this book, but such valuable things as horses, weapons, grain, or cloth, or slaves remained the commonest property, while precious metals by weight served as the commonest means of exchange. Iron, the most useful, was still rare enough to be worked into setting for jewelry. Solid gold, silver, or copper bracelets, chains, cups, and caskets had great value because of the weight of metal in them, while the Greek drachma equaled an English shilling of latter times in nominal value. Its actual value before Alexander started the expedition into Asia was more than 30 times the English pre-war shilling. Thus, it is estimated that an Athenian family of 4 needed some 250 drachmas for its minimal yearly substance. A talent nominally about $1,100 had purchasing power of closer to $40,000, but almost no price standards existed in the West. The flood of Asiatic gold darics had already driven down the silver exchange ratio from about 13-1 to 10-1 in the West. In entering Asia, Alexander encountered the problem of the infinitely greater wealth structure of the East. One specific problem he solved in lightning fashion. Since the gold in the East was beating down the value of the silver in the West, the two currencies conflicted. In Greece, 1 gold stater was worth 24 silver drachmas. In Asia, 1 gold daric equaled 20 silver sigloi. Alexander struck an equilibrium between the currencies by simply demonetizing gold, making silver standard at the rate of 1 gold daric to 20 Greek drachmas. While Greece itself, except for the always wealthy Delphic shrine, had little enough of such treasures, Asia seemed to possess an unlimited store of gold as well as silver, drawn from the mines in the Taurus Mountains, in further Arabia, and that most distant, unknown East that voyagers named Ind.